Okay. So I think we're planning on sort of taking a break. Well, we were planning on taking a break around midday for lunch. I don't know how long you want, but perhaps we talk about that later. If you've got any questions during the training, it's better to speak up rather than use the chat function because it's quite difficult for me to uh, see notifications on the chat unless I'm, constantly checking it. So it's best to just speak up. Um,
Right.
okay, so yeah, we'll make a start. Right. So once Sage is installed for you, you'll have an icon on the desktop. So you just double click it. It will use your Windows credentials to log on. Okay, so you don't have to put any username or password or anything. And you'll have a training company and a live company, obviously, when you go live. So we're just going to go into the training. Okay, so when it logs you in, it takes you into a home page. Okay, so you've got home page has got help articles, videos, how to create favorites, and frequently accessed. I'll show you how to do favorites shortly. Okay, so on the left-hand side, this icon here is for your full menu. Now, when we implement Sage for you, quite a lot of the icons here, the menu options won't be there for you. Things like bill of materials, project accounting, it's not relevant for you. They're additional modules that you don't have, so you won't see those. The reason you're seeing them now is because this is on my virtual machine where I've got everything licensed. So this is the full menu and this is the favorites menu. So I'll show you how you can create favorites and structure that in a short while. So I think where we're going to start with today is purchase ledger, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Jamie.
Yeah. Okay. So purchase ledger, we have
Jamie, just a minute. Is there a way you can increase your screen, because we can't see it very clearly actually.
What you mean, like the resolution?
Yes, that's right.
I don't think that's any different, is it? That's probably no different, no? Hello?
Yes, Jamie. Yeah, it's. I mean, it didn't make any difference actually.
No. Are you able to sort of maximize things on your side? You've got any options?
Let me.
Shashir, you've asked whether you can become the presenter.
No, sorry. I was just checking something else, but I didn't get any. I didn't get any option to zoom in on the screen.
Right. Hmm. I've got to find where we were now before because it's causing some issues now. Okay, so I don't think there's anything I can do my end for that, unfortunately. So I don't know if you can, like I say, I don't know if you can maximize the screen somehow to make it larger.
Yeah, fine, Jamie. We'll see. Let's see
Yeah.
if anything in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so purchase ledger, we have a list view, so a list of suppliers. So every module has a list view. With the, obviously we've got columns here that we can add and remove. Anything you change in these views is saved for your logon. Okay, it's not a global thing. You can change order.
Jamie, sorry to interrupt. Can you try pressing Control and the plus key, the key with the plus sign on it?
Control with the plus sign.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing happening here for that.
Or if you can scroll on your mouse with Control key pressed.
No, it just goes down.
It's not doing it.
No.
Fine. Okay. Fine, Jamie. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I can do really.
Fine, Jamie. Let's continue like this only. We'll see.
Okay, you want me to continue? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we've got columns that you can add and remove. You can change the order. You can sort by the columns. You can send to Excel. Okay, so these features in terms of list views are available in every module. If you're looking for a particular supplier, you can type something into the search box and then it will filter that for you. If you double click the record, the supplier, that takes you into transaction inquiry. And we'll come back to this. I'll show you how this works. Also, if you highlight the supplier on the list view, you can use the shortcut buttons at the top here for various actions. Okay, reports and inquiries and transactions. And what you find at the top of the list view are also available on the full menu over here. It's just that this is almost like a shortcut to these menu items in a way. Okay, there are some things that in the full menu that aren't on the list view, and I'll show you what those are. Okay, so if we just take a look at supplier record to begin with. So I'll just go into the record. Now, obviously, we have to have a unique code. Then we've got the name. Short name is just defaults to the first 8 characters. And then we've got address details, bank details. Okay, so Peter's obviously supplied all this when we imported the suppliers. And contacts. Okay, so for the contacts, we can specify email addresses for remittance contacts. So when we produce remittance advice from Sage, you know, if this contact has the remittance role, it will use this email address. Okay. The trading, we've got the country code, the default VAT code. Again, this is all on the imports that Peter's provided. And if you like, a default nominal code, but the nominal code, you know, for purchase orders will be coming from the items, the product records. Okay. Payment gives us the what's going on here? Can't click on anything now. Okay. I seem to have lost control.
Jimmy, can you confirm the meeting ID, or guys, because when we tried, it's showing the meeting ID is invalid.
Sorry, is that Shashir?
No, this is Image.
Image.
Yeah.
So you're not connected at the moment then?
Well, I'm on a conference and we are trying to see your screen. I mean, the guys in the back office can able to see the screen. We are unable to do it.
Okay. Right.
So the meeting ID I have, let me tell you.
Image, that ID won't be required. There's a link on the invite that I had sent you. If you click on that link, it should go directly to the screen.
I can send you the link again if you like. So in the chat now, let me just. I've sent the link in the chat. Oh no, sorry, you won't have that yet, will you? You're in the chat. You're not in the chat. Let me just.
Don't worry, I've got it now.
You got it, yeah?
I've got it.
So you can see the screen now.
Yeah, but I think as the guys mentioned, it's really, really blurry, and then we hardly can see, I think, any captions or anything.
Right. I say I've never had this problem before when we've done training like this, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you're getting this issue.
Yes, Jimmy. Last week when you did it, we could see the screen clearly, but today it's not. It's very it's not clear actually.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure what to suggest. And you can't, like I say, you can't maximize the screen at all. There's nothing you can do your end. I assume there's nothing you can do.
No, Jimmy, we are not able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah.
Are you using two screens or something?
No.
Maybe?
No, not using two screens.
What is your screen size?
So the screen size. Well, I'm using a second screen, but it's only on the second screen. Let me try something else.
Yeah, this is better, I guess.
This is better now, is it?
Yeah, I think this is better. It's visible at least.
Yes,
Jimmy,
Jimmy.
how about
Now
you?
yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, this is much. I think at least you can see what is happening around. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Right. So yeah, we've got the account record, payment terms, payment group. So if you want to generate a payment file when you're doing a payment run, to upload to the bank. Credit information. This isn't actually used anywhere in Sage. It's just information page. Attachments. You can add files or folders, and they get stored centrally for everyone to access if they've got that on their menu. Memo notes. So you can create notes on the account record, and that stores it with the date and the time and the user, and then you can see the detail of the note there. And you can do that. You can do memos at transaction level as well. This is just a warning saying that we've decided to use email remittance, but there's no email address at the moment set up. They're just warning me. If that is the case, then what would happen is it would just generate an email without any to address. So you'd still have the email, just with the blank address. Okay, so the account records. So to create a new account, obviously you just click on the icon here and just populate the details like we just looked at. To change the status of the supplier, if you use the account status option, so here we can put an account on hold, or we can change their active status. So if they're hidden, then it's kind of like deleting them, but there's it's soft delete, so they're still in the system. So if I refresh the list here, Aberdeen is now gone. So you wouldn't see that when you're doing transactions or inquiries. You'd have to run a report to find your inactive suppliers. So there's a report here, accounts not active. So if suppliers are no longer trading, or for maybe another reason you just want to stop them being used, you can make them hidden or inactive. And this report shows you the suppliers that are currently hidden. If you want to unhide, go back to account status and find the supplier and then change them back to active. When you're doing this, you can add a reason. So no longer trading. So on the report you could see why they were hidden, or why they were put on hold as well. The text for that. So that is the account status. Okay, so in terms of supplier accounts, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there is an option for writing off an account. So it would create a credit note for any outstanding balance and write off the account. The account is still active though, so you still would need to hide it or put it on hold, whatever you need to do. When you're working in Sage, there's three icons up in any window, so you've got to provide feedback. So if there's something about the form you want to discuss, send back to Sage, improvements, that kind of thing, you can put it in this form, and that gets sent directly to Sage. This icon is to add things to favorites. So if you click on the favorites icon, that goes into the favorites menu, and you can edit your favorites. So you can create folders. So you can create a folder, for example, purchase ledger, and then you can drag and drop various things here. So you can drag and drop things and structure your menu, your favorites menu. The other icons we've got here is the help button. So if you click on the help button, that takes you to the online help, which is constantly being updated by Sage. And if you do it from a form, it takes you to the help relevant to that form. Whilst you're here, though, you can search the help in whatever module you need, or you can just navigate. So if you go to the help menu, you can use the options to navigate the help. Okay, so it's quite comprehensive, and like I say, it's constantly being updated. So they've also got a video section as well, which you may want to take a look at some point. Okay, so that's the help. Okay, so in terms of transactions for suppliers, now if it's for a purchase order, and this is what we were looking at last week with Peter and the rest of the team, the purchase order would be generated in the purchase order processing module. Okay, so this is this module here. When it comes to raising an invoice for a purchase order, you can do that in Purchase Ledger. If you go to the list view, supplier list, there is a, if you go to this option, additional transactions, and you've got record purchase invoice. So this one is different from these two. So these invoice and rapid invoice are not for purchase orders. Okay, so to raise an invoice for a purchase order, you need to go to this one, record purchase invoice. So when you do that, the first thing it's going to do, sorry, I'll take a step back there. I had Abergavenny highlighted. So when I go to the record purchase invoice, it's only going to be for Abergavenny. If I clear my selections, so nothing is selected in the list, and then I go to record purchase invoice, now it prompts me to select the supplier. So I can select whoever I like here. So if I select Abergavenny, the first thing it's going to do is show me a list of purchase orders that require invoicing. They haven't been invoiced yet. So naturally, on the invoice that you receive from the supplier, it's going to state the PO number, potentially multiple purchase orders. So you can go ahead and select the purchase orders that are being that you've received an invoice for. Okay, and this is the invoice date. This is the invoice reference, so their invoice number. This check option is to check that the invoice and date, invoice number and date, is unique for that supplier. So in other words, it hasn't already been processed. So this is saying, okay, it hasn't been processed. Goods value up here, this is what you would type in as a control total. So you'd be looking at your invoice and you'd put in your the subtotals here for the goods, the net and the VAT. And this is where we match it to the PO items. Okay, so we've got the items here, so we can match them here. So those three purchase orders, we've got quantities on the PO, and it's coming back. It might be they've raised a part invoice for one of these purchase orders. I don't know if that ever happens. But if you do, you can put in a part invoice quantity. Okay, so the remaining two items on that PO still need to be invoiced. Then we've got the unit price that was used on the purchase order. So again, if that was different, you could change it. Obviously, that's going to be different from your purchase order. So you might want to dispute that or query that with the supplier. But Sage is not going to stop you changing the price on the invoice if it is different from the purchase order. It will allow you to do that. Okay, so obviously the goods value and the VAT is calculated from these two variables. So the first thing you would have done is put on looking at your invoice, you'd have had your total up here, that you would have typed in from the invoice, and then you would have selected what orders, purchase order lines are being invoiced, and then you'd have a total down here and a total here, and that should obviously reconcile with the invoice. So the PO lines reconcile with the invoice. Everything's okay. You can go ahead and post your invoice. Okay, so that's this option here. Okay, what's different here then? Oh, okay. I typed in the wrong figure here. That needs to be a 9. It warns me. So, if the purchase invoice the supplier sent, the totals up here differ from what's on the PO, you get that warning that just popped up saying that, there's a difference. So you can either accept that or, like I say, query or dispute that with the supplier. When you go to post, this is the final sort of confirmation screen, okay, for the invoice. We don't have to change anything here. It's just showing us, where it's going to be posted, and the dates and the references. So you do have an opportunity to change things here if you need to. But when you save it, that's that invoice saved against the supplier account. So if I save that, it keeps me in the invoice screen. So if I did want to raise an invoice for another supplier, I can, for a purchase order, I can do that whilst I'm here. But if I'm done, I just close and we go back to the screen here. Okay, so that's an invoice entry for a purchase order. Now, if you're entering an invoice for overheads, that kind of thing, where you haven't got a purchase order, you would use one of these two. So there's rapid invoice, and there's the invoice entry. So are any of you, is anyone familiar with sort of Sage 50 or Sage 200? They've got some experience in either.
Yeah, we have got. Go ahead, Manish.
Yeah, we are already working on Sage 50 software.
You're working on Sage 50, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So the rapid invoice will be more familiar. It's more similar to Sage 50. So if I go into rapid invoice, but just keep in mind that these, like I said before, these ones are not for a purchase order, these two. Things like overheads, whatever. So with this one, you would pick your supplier, and you've got the date, due date. The due date is calculated from the terms set on the supplier account. And then you got the...
So Jamie, sorry to interrupt. Can I say that these are the invoices where you don't have a purchase order and you want to basically for the overhead, etc. So for electricity bill, rent bill, you can use this module to post those invoices.
That's correct.
That correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you've got sort of British Gas or anything, or I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but you pick a supplier. You got the invoice date, invoice number, second reference if you want to use that, and then the nominal. Okay, so here's where you pick your overhead nominal code. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Were you asking me something there? Sorry? Shall I continue?
Yeah. Yes, Jamie, you can continue.
Okay. So the narrative is for the nominal transaction. Okay. So you might want to put some kind of narrative in there for the nominal transaction. Okay. Net, obviously, you know, you've got the figures here. You've also got hotkeys here. So a bit like with Sage 50, you've got hotkeys. So you can copy cell above, you can insert or remove rows, and you can calculate net. So if I put the gross figure in the net box and then F9, it would calculate the net for me. Okay, so you just type in the gross, click, and then click F9. So if you said F6, it copies the cell above. And it might be that you have 2 lines on the invoice. So I copy the invoice number. Yeah, so it might be you have 2 lines on the invoice, just different nominal codes. So same invoice number, different nominal codes. And then you've got your narrative. And then again, the net and the gross, the VAT is calculated from the VAT code. So if you want to change the VAT code, that's available here. So you've got exempt, which is outside the scope of VAT. So that's you know, non-VATable. Standard and 0 rated, and then you got your EC codes as well. Okay. So once you know, you can put on different suppliers here as well whilst you're here. So I can now select a different supplier. You know, it's a different invoice, obviously, and we've got our codes and so on. So what you can do before you post is check for duplicates, and if there are duplicates, you know, invoices that already exist in the system, it will warn you here. No duplicates are found, so you go ahead and post. And then if you were to look at the supplier account, you know, we'll come back to the transaction inquiry, but you know, there's that invoice, and there's the nominal codes that we used. It also shows you the you know, the balance sheet side as well. Okay. The other invoice entry is this one. So it's not like a grid type entry. It's just a form. So you pick an invoice date. You've got the invoice number. And this is kind of like the legacy way of doing it. This is the rapid invoice was introduced recently. Okay. So you might prefer using rapid. I think most people do. But yeah, you put the goods total in here, the VAT total, and then you've got the VAT breakdown. So you can have multiple VAT codes, and you can have multiple nominal analysis down here. And obviously you just need to make sure that the total nominal analysis agrees with your control total up here before you post. It won't, you know, warn you otherwise.
Jimmy, can you please go back to VAT analysis?
Go to VAT analysis.
Code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we do? There is not a reduced rate code in there. So because some of the services are for 5% rated, so how could we post that?
There's a 5% code you're going to need, is there?
Yeah.
Okay, well we can set that up. I'll get that set up on the live company for you, but that is in accounting system manager settings. We have our VAT rates here. So we can create a new one, and what would you call this rate? Reduce rate? And it's 5%, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So now if I'm entering an invoice, I can pick the reduced rate here.
So do we need an admin permission, or every user can change, can do that?
Say that again.
Do we need to be a super user for that, or can every user can do that?
So what I'll do is I'll get this 5% rate set up for you on the Live Company. If you want this as a default for some suppliers, then please.
The question was about Jimmy. If anyone wants to change or amend the VAT rate, do they need to have the admin password, admin ID, or can they just do it with their login?
I think Mukim answer is you would require admin password and admin super login. We are gonna create so Jamie, this is down the line when we create the user list, we'll have a separate control. So there are 3 groups should be. One is super admin, should have all the rights. Second is the the user at Peter's team at Reno. And the third thing is the users in a finance team.
Okay, yeah.
So I think system related changes shouldn't be done by everyone.
No. Yeah, so what we can do is we can create, when we do the live migration, one of the exercises that we'll go through is creating user roles, and you can define what areas of the program the role can access.
That would be perfect, yes. Yeah. So the answer to your question, Mukim and Manish, is no, you cannot do that.
I asked because we also need out of scope rate also.
Yeah. So whatever. So yeah, I mean, in the when we have like effectively a trial period, when we do some of the posting, etc., you guys need to note down what are the stuff we need to configure. So prior to like a migration, we configure those things in a system.
Yeah, I'd take an ongoing task list that things like this 5% rate, I will make sure is configured and go live.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So anything like that, just let me know, and we'll get that all set up for you. Okay, so so if we save the invoice here, so this is just a different way of entering it. Okay, so that's the invoice, that's the rapid invoice. Okay, so it really depends which method you prefer. Okay, the important distinction is that, like I said before, that these are not for purchase orders. That has to be this one, record purchase invoice. Okay, so in terms of supplier transactions, then we've got the credit note here. So the credit note obviously is just the same as what we looked at with the invoice. There's no difference there. It's just the opposite. So that's the credit note. There's no rapid entry for credit note. It has to be this form here. Okay. And then for cash entries, we have a payment option. So this one, sorry, let me come out of that. Right, the important distinction with this one is it does not create remittance advice. So you would use this one for things like payment on account, or paying a direct, entering a direct debit payment, that kind of thing. Okay, so this does not create remittance advice. So if I do a payment for Abergavenny, because I know there's an invoice on there, the first thing is, right, before we go any further on that one, I need to make sure a bank account exists. What bank is it again that would be on this company?
Barclays.
Barclays, yeah. we'll come back to cash, but I just need this to do your to do the supply payment. Okay. You don't know off the top of your head the bank nominal. It doesn't really matter too much, but do you know what that would be, the bank nominal code?
Well, I can give you a random normal code which we use. It's 1800. But yeah, I mean, the guys will confirm.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's unless I'm missing something. It doesn't look like you have a balance sheet bank account.
I think the bank account is not created.
This is what this one. You just missed that.
Jamie, can you go up?
With the name of payment. This
Oh,
is
this
account
one.
and payment account.
This
One
one.
is this and another.
Yes, that's right.
At
This
the
one.
receipt. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to come back to Cashbook, but I just need to create a bank to start with. So yeah, it also remembers where you've been, so we can jump back to supplier list down here. It remembers the list views you've been in, so that's a quick way of sort of navigating. Go to list, go to bank, in that way. Okay. So yeah, the payment option. Obviously, it's going to default to the Barclays. I haven't spelled that right. Never mind. Barclays current account, and here we've got the date. You know, the reference if you want to put something in for the payment, and the value. So when you're doing it this way, more often than not, you'll just be clicking save. You know, you've got nothing to allocate it to. It's a payment on account, so you'd save it. I mean, if it was a direct debit one, perhaps you'd save and allocate, and then you can allocate it to the invoice. Okay, so if I save, and then we look at the supplier account, there's our payment on account. Okay, so that payment, that £100 payment is on the supplier account, but you know, there's no allocation value. It hasn't been allocated to any invoices. If we, you know, like for example, direct debit, if we enter a payment and this time we save and allocate, when we do this, we can allocate to an outstanding transaction. So the payment, you can see my new payment has been fully allocated. And then down here, the outstanding invoices, we can choose which one we want to allocate it to. So obviously there's only one there, we can allocate that one. In fact, when you do it that way though, it allocates the full value. So you want to actually put in the payment value there. There's no difference. That's something to watch out for though when you're doing allocations, because if you see a negative difference here, you know, so the invoice is fully allocated, but that value is higher than the payment, then it becomes a negative difference. And if you try and save that, it says it doesn't balance. Do you want to write off the difference as a discount? So the difference between the payment and the full allocation value on the invoice, is that a discount? So you want to watch out for that. More often than not, you know, it's not a discount. You know, it's so you just need to make sure there's no discrepancy there. When you save that, and then we go back into the transaction inquiry, that payment is not viewable because this option here, we're only showing outstanding items only. If we untick that, there's our payment, and it was fully allocated. Okay, and it was fully. If we want to see where it was allocated, in the drill down here, we've got the different options. So one of them is an allocation session, and here we can see the invoice it was allocated to. And you can see on the list up here, that invoice was part allocated. So when we tick out show outstanding only, we only see our payment on account, no allocations, and our invoice, which is part allocated. So they're both outstanding. That's what this option is for. And again, well, I'll come back to the transaction inquiry to give you some more information on this. Okay, so yeah, we've got payment, and then we've got receipt. So obviously that's a refund, supplier refund. You know, you might want to enter this for a credit note, save and allocate to a credit note. You know, same process as we looked at with the payment. What else have we got? We've got additional transactions. Yeah, we talked about recording an invoice for purchase order. And we've talked about the also if there's a purchase return, you know, in the you know goods, you know, you need to raise a return in the purchase order processing module for goods, you know, for products. Then you can do record purchase credit note, and this one would force you to select a return note, which is like a purchase order. It's the opposite of a purchase order. I don't think, by the sounds of it, you're going to have that situation though. I mean, I think probably what would happen, what's more likely, is you'd enter a credit note directly on purchase ledger. Yeah, return notes are normally used with stock. You know, when you're receiving stock or sending stock back to the supplier. Okay, but that's what that one's for. Okay, now if you do have payments on account or transactions that you need to allocate, you know, retrospectively, if you go via the menu to enter transactions, you've got the allocation option here. So here I can go by supplier, and then just come in and do my allocations at a later date. So for this payment on account, I can do my allocation. Oh, sorry, the outstanding value. Yeah. So that one, this invoice is the outstanding value is 80. So if you do an auto allocate, it would automatically allocate, you know, the correct amount on both sides. Rather than have this sort of having to type it in manually, you can auto allocate. That's another option there. This reverse button is just to reset things back to 0 in the allocation screen. So if you reset, just to start again, really, reset button. That's what that's for. And this payment option is to raise a payment whilst you're here. So if I highlight the invoice and raise a payment, it will create a payment for that invoice and allocate it. That's what that's for. But once you're happy with your allocations, just click save. And now, obviously, there's nothing. The only thing that's outstanding on that account now is that payment, which has been part allocated to the invoice. Okay. The authorization option is if you want to have a separate routine, if the transactions are over a certain value, it needs to go through authorization. I don't know if that's something you need or you want to look at. George, is that something you need, the authorization on purchase invoices? Is everyone still there?
Yeah, everyone is here, Jamie. Authorization on purchase invoices.
Yeah, I guess
we haven't thought about, but we'll look at the internal process and confirm you. But I think at this stage we probably wouldn't require, because we have got at payment stage, we have got a different check-in and review. So let's leave it out of the way for now.
Yeah.
Guys, would you agree on that?
Yes, Image, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So leave it for now, but it's something for us to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I
for-
mean, the invoice is recorded, but it posts to like a balance sheet code for authorizations. It doesn't go on the profit and loss. Yeah. Okay. Then we got the contra entry. So this is to offset balances between a customer and supplier account here. So you can just pick your customer. Oh, yeah, you'd obviously pick the right bank. I don't know if you have that, suppliers and customers, where you need to offset balances in between the two. Yeah, you have someone who's a customer and a supplier. Unlikely, probably.
No, we do have
No.
one. We do have one supplier as a customer as well.
Okay. Yeah. So all you need to do there is select the customer account and the corresponding supplier account, and just pick the invoices, the transactions that you want to allocate together. Okay. They don't have to be the same value. It'll just allocate what it can. The invoice against the purchase invoice against the sales invoice in this example. Okay, so that's a contra entry. All right. So it's something you might want to revisit. Again, if you want to see the exact outcomes, click on the help, and it talks you through the process, how to do it, and the outcomes. So just keep in mind that this help function is available, throughout Sage.
Okay.
Okay. Batch transactions. It's
Batch transactions.
yeah. Now this is I think rapid invoice entry is probably better than batch, but I'll show you how batch works. I think it's because I crashed out earlier. This is worth noting. I crashed out of Sage earlier. I had to do something. Sometimes that will create like what's called a record lock. So if you go to the little settings button up here, and you've got the user login status. So if there's any disconnected logins, it's most likely these were created by Sage sort of ending unexpectedly. So a record lock. So you can log them off to remove them. And hopefully I should be able to get in the settings now. Yeah. I'm just going to allow batch processing. So batch entries, what this allows you to do is say, okay, well, I've got a batch of invoices I want to put on. I'll just use today's date as the batch title, and it's invoices. You could say how many you're going to put on and the total. You don't have to. And that's our batch. And down here we start entering invoices. So the invoice entry is the standard way, the legacy way. So you'd enter them like in this way with the goods total and so on. Nominal, analysis, and you save, and it keeps you in here to enter another one. But basically you build up invoices, and you can see I've got an actual entry and actual total. Now, these are not saved on the supplier account until I commit them. That's the only thing the batch is doing, really. It's a normal invoice entry, but they're not saved on the supplier account until you commit them. So it's probably not what you expected in terms of batch entry. I would suggest that probably what you'd expect when someone says batch entry is the rapid invoice entry, where you're putting them in a grid like this. So actually, to be honest with you, not many people end up using this batch transactions. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how it works. Opening balance entries. It's unlikely you'll ever need to use these because they just purely put a balance on the supply. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, actually, you showed up like batch transactions, right? So you showed only one invoice. What if we have multiple invoices in a single vendor? So how could we, select? I can see that there was only one reference to.
On batch entry.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you were doing it on rapid entry, first of all, if you were doing it here, you'd select the supplier on the grid, on each grid. You can select by name. So if I put in Ulster, it's going to go to Ulster. You can find it by name. So here we've got multiple suppliers on the grid. When I post, they post all of them. Yeah. On the batch, this doesn't really work like that. On the batch, you have to add invoices here, select the supplier, put your invoice details on, save it, go to the next one, do it again, save, and you build up a batch of invoices that way. It's a lot more long-winded. It's a lot less beneficial. There's no than doing rapid invoice entry. It's almost like a legacy way, a legacy option that Sage have left in the program for some reason.
Jamie, is there option to upload it via Excel, or we can import it through Excel or not?
Importing invoices.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we import multiple invoices via Excel?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can import supplier transactions via Excel. Yes. If you go to utilities and import, you got an option here for importing transactions. And if it's cash, also you can update the cash as well. But if you hit the help button here, we can get a sample. And it's in CSV format. So this is a sample file, and this is a guide. So you can take a look at the guide. If you need any assistance with importing, then you can contact Utilize and we can help you with that. Okay?
Manish. Okay.
Yeah.
So Jamie, there's just one more question. I mean, if we are looking to looking for an import file to upload in banking portal, so how can we do that?
If you're looking to import
the text file or the specific file which can be uploaded to bank.
So in terms of importing transactions for suppliers, yeah, we can import credit notes, invoices, payments, and refunds. If you want to get the format of that, just click on the help button and go to the relevant option here. So this is a guide and this is a sample file template. It has to be CSV when you do the import.
Okay. So there I can see only a CSV file option there. I mean, is there any option like we can get text files?
No, it has to be CSV.
Yeah.
It has to be CSV. What I would suggest though is when you could provide an example invoice in Sage and say, ask Utilize that here's my invoice in Sage. Can you give me the format for that if I wanted to import it? And then it would make sense to you, what format you're going to need.
Okay, Jamie. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the importing. Right. Okay. So in terms of adjusting transactions, we can amend certain details. Okay. So if we go to a supplier with a balance, so amend details, I can change due date and I can change references. That's all though. If I want to do anything more than that, I need to use the correct transactions option. So in fact, when you're in these, hold on. Oh yeah, in adjust transactions here, we've got correct transactions. Okay, so if we select the supplier, we get a list of transactions, and let's say it could be that the invoice went on against the wrong supplier, or it could be that you used the wrong nominal code. Anything you want to change, use the correct transaction option. So you select the invoice. If you click reverse, that would just create a credit note. It would reverse it, and it would allocate the credit note to the invoice. However, if we use the correct option, this takes us into the invoice, and we could now say, well, actually, that invoice should have been for this supplier, and also perhaps we should have used this nominal code, a different nominal code. And also maybe the value is wrong, so we change the value. So you go ahead, you can make any changes you want, and then when you post corrections, you'll have two things happen. So first of all, it would be reversed from Ulster's account. So if we look at Ulster's account, so you can see that credit note has reversed the invoice. So it's taken it away from Ulster and posted it. I think it was this account. Yeah, and posted it to Easingwood. So it's changed the supplier, and also the value has been updated, and the nominal. So if we look at the nominal, it's now using the nominal code that we specified. So basically, it reverses the original and posts the new for you when you do correct transactions. So correct transactions applies to any supplier transaction, whether it's cash or an invoice or a credit note. Okay, so you can use that for anything there. Delete transactions we tend to take off the menu. It's something that we sometimes might use, but not for a day-to-day use for a Sage user, because it just takes the transaction off the supplier account. It doesn't do anything with nominal, doesn't do anything with VAT. So you'd get yourself in a bit of a mess if you used this option. So you won't see that on your live company. Final option we got here then in adjust transactions is the write off small amounts. So things like VAT discrepancies, those small amounts. If you say like all write off transactions from all accounts and then filter the balance, so show me anything with a 50p or less balance or 10p or less balance, and then it would show them all down here, and you can highlight them and write them off, and it just creates the credit note for that small amount, allocates it, and that transaction is no longer outstanding now. So that can be useful. Okay, so that sort of takes us through the standard transactions. The next thing we've got to look at is paying suppliers. Okay, so this is for payment runs where you want to generate remittance advice, and and potentially the file to upload to Barclays Bank. Yeah, Barclays. Is it Barclays.net you use?
Yes, Jamie.
Yeah, Barclays.net. Okay, let's just configure that. I think it uses this one actually. Yeah, that would do for now anyway. So one important thing here is in the settings, we've got different payment groups. So at the moment we've got an electronic payment group. So in other words, it's going to create a payment file for you, and it's email. So create an email for the remittance. And then everything else at the moment is just going into other. So this is just remittance advice. There's no bank payment file. And what we've done there is, Peter's supplied a list of suppliers on a spreadsheet. If any of those suppliers don't have bank details on, I put them into the other group. Okay, so there's no bank details on the supplier account, so there's not going to be a payment file generated for those. Okay, if you do decide to enter bank details against the supplier account, then you can change them to the BACS group. So all you need to do is go into the supplier account, go to the payment tab, and say move them from other to BACS on the payment group. Okay. So that's the payment group. So to the period end routines, we have a payment processing option here. So the first option, generate suggested payments. This is where Sage will suggest what to pay based on due dates. So if the transaction due date is passed, or you want to specify that, then you can use this, and Sage will suggest what to pay. If you've got your own reports and you want to skip that, you can go straight to this option, amend suggested payments, and then you can just go into each supplier and choose what you want to pay. So it could be there's a long list of transactions here. You could say pay all, and it would highlight all of them and pay them all. So I don't know if there's any we've got where there's multiple. No, not at the moment. Yeah, so you could say pay all, and it would populate all of them. Or you could do a part payment. So you choose your part payment value. Pay none just resets everything to 0 for that supplier. Pay all would obviously populate everything. The pay now button is a one-off payment for this supplier. Okay, so if you want to generate a file to upload to the bank, you want to do a payment run, what you do is save that. You don't pay now because you want to create a payment group. So you save it, you move on to your next supplier, do the same thing. Decide what you want to pay, save it, move on to the next supplier. All right, so okay, so you go through your amend suggested payments, you've chosen what to pay, then you can run a report. So what are we paying? People in the suppliers in the BACS group. This is what we currently got in our suggested payments. So we're currently going to be paying these 3 suppliers, and the overall total is going to be this. Once you're happy with that, you can go to the final stage of generating the payments. So this is this option. So here, because I want to do a group of payments, I go to multiple, select my BACS group, choose what bank account I want to pay from. We got the remittance date, the allocation date, and you can add a message here as well on the remittance advice if you want to. Just type something in if you like. And then when we OK that, this is the confirmation for the CSV file to upload to Barclays, or text file. It might be text, depends how you configure it. It can be either text or CSV. So you can see that it's got all the bank details here. And you can set a default folder for it as well. So it could be like a shared network folder for the file. So you save that, and then it would generate the remittance. Okay, so that's actually output to email. So there's my remittance advice for each supplier. Now ignore this. We'll obviously customize this for EPE, but it would look something like this. Okay, so you have your remittance advice, what's being paid, and so on. What I'm going to do with the layouts is send you the default ones, and then you can come back to me with any changes you need, if you need any. Okay, so I'll send them to everyone on the usual email recipients. Okay, so that's remittance advice. So these, because there's no email address on the supplier account, these have all just gone into one email. If there was an email address on each supplier account, we'd have separate emails. So it just so happens that the ones I've chosen, the spreadsheet that Peter sent across for suppliers, these three suppliers do not have an email address for the remittance role. All three of them. Okay, so that's the reason why they all ended up in one email. So if you want that to work correctly, what we really need to do is make sure that the suppliers all have a valid email address for the remittance advice. Okay, so you might want to mention that to Peter. If there's any work that needs to be done there to populate that. So that completes the payment process. So we've got our file. I think it went. Yeah, this.
Jimmy, is there a way we can download?
Is there
Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah, is there a way we can download the vendor details as well from here in an Excel sheet?
Is there a way you can download the
supplier details, like the bank details and everything, email ID and all other details?
You mean the ones that Peter sent me?
Yeah, like he had sent you and you have uploaded it onto the system. Is there a way we can download as well?
Well, I think you just need to look at Peter's email. He's got the spreadsheet is attached to his email.
No, that's fine, Jimmy. What I wanted to know is in future we'll have additions to the supplier list.
Oh,
and if we want downloaded in,
from Sage, you mean download from Sage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
No, there isn't an option for that. I mean, well, you could send your list view. This list of suppliers here.
Right.
So you could add columns for addresses and certain details, and send that to Excel. Yeah, so if I send all to Excel, it just goes straight into a workbook with all my suppliers. But that's not in the format. That's not in a format for importing. That's
fine. Fine.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that completes the payment process. if you were to try and do another payment for one of these suppliers, it's going to say you've already processed payments for that supplier, so you can't do anything further within this payment cycle. So what you need to do then is the next time you do a payment run, the first thing you need to do is reset the suggested payments. It says delete, but really it's like a reset. So delete, and then you can reset everything. So now when I go back to amend suggested payments, it will allow me to do another payment now for that supplier. It's reset what's outstanding, basically. If we were to look at the supplier account, I think, no, it must have been another supplier that we paid. Ulster, maybe. Payment. Here we go, this payment. So you can see that the payment that's been generated and allocated, fully allocated to the invoice here. Okay. Yeah, the first option that we skipped initially was Sage suggesting what to pay. So you could specify your remittance date. You can say pay invoices with a certain amount overdue, and if there was something outstanding, obviously it would create it would do the suggested payments for you. You could then go ahead and amend them. You could go into each supplier and say change what Sage has suggested, but it's up to you. I mean, if you want to suggest based on due dates, then use this first option, and then go to amend to change things. If, however, you prefer to go straight in and do the payments yourself for each supplier, perhaps based on a report that you've run, then skip the first stage. Skip this one and go straight to amend, and then you choose what to pay. Is that clear?
Yes, Jamie.
Everything all right with that? Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. So that sort of takes us through transactions for suppliers, purchase ledger. In terms of inquiries, if we go to the supplier account here, we go to inquiries. We've got an account inquiry. So this is just read-only information on the account. Okay, so you've got the address, contacts, terms, and so on. You've also got balances and turnover, period by period turnover. So invoices, credits, receipts, and payments. You can change the date range here. You've got turnover by year, by financial year. Attachments, so you can view attachments and memos there. The transaction inquiry, like I said before, if you double click, so if you're looking for a supplier and then you double click, that takes you into transaction inquiry. So in the settings, the default is to show outstanding only. So if you want to see everything, you untick that. The other thing to watch out for is this. So at the moment, the maximum amount of transactions that will be shown is 100. So if you need to expand that, you can type in a larger figure there. If you're looking for a particular transaction, you can use the find option. So you can find a reference. But this is going to show you references, values, and then the drill down gives us the detail. So outstanding values, dates, and so on. Nominal Nominal gives us the all the associated postings, nominal postings. Allocation, if it has been allocated, what was it allocated to? So you can, if you look at the session, you can see what it was allocated to. History would be things like if you're using foreign, foreign currency, you could see the gain or loss that was created at the point of paying the supplier. VAT breakdown on the invoice. If it was a cash transaction, you can see the bank detail. So for this payment, I can see the bank that was used on the payment. And also you've got on the transaction inquiry, you've also got a memo. So you can create, supplier chase payment, whatever, and then put some detail in, perhaps why you're not paying. And then you can see now there's an active memo on this transaction. If for whatever reason you did want to prevent payment on a transaction, you can put something in this query flag here. So it doesn't matter what you put in anything you like, and this, because there's something in the query now, you wouldn't be able to pay it. Now I know this one is already paid, so it's irrelevant, but if it wasn't paid and you put a query in, it would stop it coming up. You wouldn't be able to pay it, basically. You wouldn't be able to allocate anything to it. And the way to resolve it is just to come into the transaction inquiry and just remove the query. That's all you need to do. So it's just like, it's almost like a hold flag, this one. If you wanted to see why it's under query, perhaps you've added a memo. So then you can go down and look at the memo, look at the history of the communication for that transaction here. So, it's going to create the date and time. So, if I come out of here, go back in, immediately we can see that this is under query. There's a memo, the date, the time, and the detail. Okay, so that's something that might be useful for you. Okay, so that's transaction inquiry. The historical tab is, if you archive transactions, there's a separate routine for archiving historical things. I think by default, let's have a look. So on the account, by default, we're going to keep transactions for 30 months. So if you, in the period end routines, if you run account maintenance and run an archive, if it finds anything older than 30 months, that's obviously no longer outstanding, this routine would archive them for you. So it's just to tidy things up, if you like. If they're over a certain age, you want to archive them, you can do that, and it just moves it into a separate area. So in terms of reporting, inquiries, that all gets moved into historical. Yeah.
My question is, is it related to bucketization or the debt age data for debtors?
Sorry, say that again.
So sorry, it's out of context. I'm sorry.
Jamie, please continue. I think that's not related right now.
Okay, yeah. So no, this is just a housekeeping thing. If you want to tidy up transactions, you can archive them. They go to historical. Obviously, it won't let you do that if they're outstanding. If there's anything outstanding, it has to be fully allocated. Okay, so that's account maintenance. The other inquiries we've got here. You see the inquiries here with the symbol on. this globe symbol. Now these are workspaces. They're similar to list views in that, you know, we've got a grid of information. Also similar in that you can add and remove columns. So if you right click, go to column selector, you can remove or add in the list here. And also you can change the order. If you go to the column selector, you can drag and drop things to change the order. Okay, so again, that's just for your logon. So the with the workspaces, you can use filtering on any of the any of the columns. And if you highlight a record, you can drill down into the supplier information. It's very similar to the traditional inquiry. You've got the same information here. It's just a different way of looking at it in a workspace. You can run reports. You can enter transactions from workspaces. In fact, if you unpin the menu, you know, you can see a bit more. I think they're particularly useful for transactions. So we've got a current transaction workspace.
So sorry, guys, just to interrupt you. I just need to go out for 5 to 10 minutes for some urgent issue, and I'll be back. Okay?
Yeah, sure. We'll stop. We'll pause
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. You guys go continue because you are recording anyway, and then the team is already doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the workspace for transactions is particularly useful because you might be looking for a particular value. You know, you're not sure what supplier it went on to. So you could type in the value and it would filter the results to find the transaction. Yeah, so that could be obviously for a particular supplier. Yeah, so we can find it that way. And again, if you highlight the transaction, you can drill down. So I can look at the nominal, the VAT, all the details here, like you would on the traditional inquiry we looked at before. So it's the same information, but a different way of viewing it. You can export to Excel, right click, send to Excel, run reports and you know, carry out actions here as well. Okay, so we've got different ones. Yeah, for outstanding transactions, you can see here. They're, you know, just worthwhile having a look at these. You could find them quite useful. Okay, so that takes us through inquiries. The report section. So we've got the we looked at, yeah, report section. You know, we've got typical sort of transaction reports. We've got VATable transaction reports. Payment control. So here we've got the aged debtors. When you're running a report, I mean, you might be, if you're familiar with Sage 200 or Sage 50, then it's using the same report designer, so that you're used to. So, you know, you've got your criteria window here. You can use ranges, so between a certain range, or from, or to, or in, allows you to randomly pick. You know, not in any specific range or anything, but just pick the ones you want on the criteria. And then you get the report. So from the report, you can print it, you can email it, you can export it, or you can send it to Excel. So if you say data to Excel, it puts it in a spreadsheet with the you know, with it hasn't been merged at all. It's got all the proper column headings. It's quite a useful feature now in Report Designer to send to Excel. So that's that option. Now, when I produced the report, it popped up on the screen straight away. What you will find when you run a report is it by default it goes up into this spooler option here, and then you have to view it from here. More often than not, the preferred way of doing it is the way I had it, so previewed. So to change that, what you'll need to do is go to the settings and choose output mode and set it from spooler to preview. So when it's previewed, you know, when you run the report, it comes up straight away rather than going to this spooler first. Okay. Yeah, in terms of reports, you know, or inquiries, contact Utilise in the first instance. You know, advise what you're looking for, and we'll point you in the right direction. So it might be a standard report, you might need a customized report, but we will advise you on that. And you are entitled to 3 free reports from Sage every year as part of your services agreement. So if you needed like a special customized report written, then you are yeah, I think it's 3 a year you're entitled to. Okay.
Jamie, that is 3 per module or 3?
No, three in total.
Okay.
Yeah. We can obviously write reports too, and also if it's only a simple thing, we just do it under support. If it's a complex thing that's going to take over an hour, generally, then we need to quote you for that. But
okay.
But you know, but keep in mind from Sage directly, you're entitled to 3 a year, free. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So that. Are you happy with what you've seen for suppliers? Do you have any questions on purchase ledger?
Right. No, Jamie. No questions now.
No questions. Right. Okay. So we've got a bit to cover. I mean, sales ledger is going to be very similar. Okay. We've got to look at invoicing. Obviously for sales orders. Then we got the non-cash book, bank reconciliations. And we've also got to look at nominal ledger today as well, haven't we? Nominal side. So did you want to take a break now, or do you want to continue? What would you like to do?
I think we can continue if you want.
You'd like to?
You want to take a break?
It's totally up to you. What would you like a short break, or would you like to continue?
I think we don't mind 5 minutes.
5-minute break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay then. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So cash book module, we have our bank account list. So at the moment we've just got the Barclays current, but you could have, deposit accounts, credit card, petty cash, accounts here. What we'll do at Go Live is we'll set up all the accounts that are required, and with the opening balances as well. Go Live, yeah. So we'll have a reconciled opening balance. Okay. So on the bank account, so the cash book account, you have to give it a code and a description, and link it to the nominal code. that needs to be used for that cashbook account. So an important consideration here is that if you were to do a journal to this code, it would not affect the cashbook balance. So this code is almost like a control account. So you wouldn't be doing journals to this code. If you'd have to do a cash transaction. So in other words, you'd have to do a payment or a receipt. Is that clear? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is a control account. You can add contacts. You can view previously reconciled statement balances here. You can add memos, attachments, and like we did before, we can configure the e-banking settings so that when you do generate that payments file, it's in the right format for Barclays.net. So that's what this is for.
Can you explain, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Can you explain the stage bank feeds? In the e-banking, can you please explain Sage bank feeds?
Oh, the Sage bank feeds, yes. So this is it connects directly online to your bank account and downloads statement transactions. So when you
how do we do that?
Well, we have to enable it. What happens is what does it say there? Oh, okay, yeah, we need the company name. So yeah, we enable it here. You basically have to sign in and connect online, and then when you're doing the bank rec, it would download transactions directly from your bank account, the statement, and then you can automatically match them. So based on references and values, you can automatically match. Okay. The other thing it allows you to do is create rules to automatically create missing transactions in Sage. So things like bank charges or regular receipts or payments that aren't in Sage already, you can get the bank feeds to automatically create those for you.
Okay. How do we do that?
So what I'd recommend is that when you go live, or at least when we have your training company set up on your live system, on your new server, that we enable it and you can have a look to see if it's something you'd like to use.
Yeah, actually, we want to use it, but that is why I'm asking, because we want to use the Sage bank feed instead of putting everything manually. We'd rather use Sage bank feeds. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, so we can set it up. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you now because it it requires putting in all the confidential bank information to configure it.
Okay, all right.
But we will be able to assist you once it is set up. Assist you on using it. In the meantime, though, if you what I can do is send you a link to an article which describes how it works. It's actually
okay.
It's actually on the Sage article here. So you got bank feeds.
So can this be set up by us, or will I have to take your help on this?
You can set it up, but we can guide you on that as well. It's not a problem.
Okay. Okay.
So when you're ready to set it up, just let us know, and then we'll help you with that. But in the meantime, the article, you can see here, you download transactions. So the statement transactions come over here. Sage transactions. and then you can automatically match or auto match. If there's anything missing, you can create something and then create a rule for it. So, for example, if the reference contains a certain text, then you could say create a payment with using this nominal code, for example. So next time you download them, it would create the transaction in Sage for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got the rule actions here. So I'll send you the link to this. Let me just take a note.
So Jimmy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Like this option can be used only for, getting statements from bank, right? Banking portal.
Yes.
So, yeah. So do we have a similar kind of option if we like to make manual payments, right? So we need to enter the banking details of vendors and suppliers, right? So do we have a similar kind of option so that we can have the payment form in banking portal being filled by Sage automatically, and then we can submit only?
So in terms of supplier payments, that doesn't change. So you still use the payment processing that we looked at earlier today. The bank feeds, the rules just allows you to create rules for specific transactions. So you can create a rule to create bank charges every time, that kind of thing. Have I understood you correctly? Do you mind repeating the question?
No, Jimmy, it's okay. It's fine.
I think the question was if we are making payments through Sage.
Yeah.
Can we do that first? The first of all?
Oh yeah, it's totally separate. They're independent of each other.
Right. So if we can make the payment through Sage, so will Sage allow or will Sage be able to put all the information of a supplier by itself on the banking form or the payment form?
Well, in terms of supplier payments, you would use the payment processing routine we looked at earlier.
That is to create the batch file. I'm not talking about creating batch file. Can we be able to pay the supplier directly through Sage because the bank is now connected or linked with Sage?
Yeah.
So can we make the payment to the supplier?
So Jamie, basically what team is asking is this, that when we are processing the payment on Barclays.net, we log on to the system and then we put in certain details like the vendor's name and bank details and payment references, amounts, all those things.
Yeah.
What team wants to hear is it possible if we use the bank feeds option here from Sage, will the system post all these details onto the banking portal directly? Is there an option there, or will still have to use the BACS file only?
Oh no, you still have to use the BACS file. From the payment processing.
Right. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That would just be for the reconciliation bit. You could do an auto reconciliation from the bank feeds.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So yeah, we've got the bank here. So from the Cashbook module, if you go to the bank account list, from here you can do your payments and receipts. So purchase payment, we looked at that already. That's like doing a payment on account. Then we've got sales refund, which we'll look at when we look at sales ledger. And then we've got the nominal entries. So we've got a nominal VATable payment. So, if there's a certain payment you want, it's not a supplier payment, but it is VATable. you choose the nominal code and the VAT rate. Okay, and then just put in the details. So obviously you could have multiple nominal here, multiple nominal accounts. But once you're finished, you just click save, and that has created a new payment on this bank account. If it's non-vatable, like paying HMRC, for example, you choose the non-vatable option. So again, you just pick your nominal code and put in the details. So obviously when you do it this way, there's no VAT code to choose. You just put in the details and save that. And then obviously there's the receipt side. So you've got vatable receipt, non-vatable receipt, supplier refund, and sales receipt. And again, the sales receipt we look at when we do sales ledger. This enter group transactions allows you to enter a group of specific cash entries. So it could be if you've been paid by check, you could enter a group of sales receipts. And then when you enter all of your receipts here for all of your different customers, you could save and allocate that to invoices. But basically you build up a group here, and when you save it, that becomes one entry on the bank reconciliation. So it's all grouped up as one, all of the customer receipts. So it could be useful for the bank reconciliation. Okay, so that's group of transactions. You also have an inter-account transfer. So if you had two accounts, you could transfer funds between the two. So if we had a deposit account, so if we've got a deposit account, we can do a transfer. So you choose where the funds are coming from and where they're going to. Put in the detail and save it. And that moves the funds. Yes, okay, so that's the transactions. So for the for the bank reconciliation, we've got an option here. So this will be different when you're using bank feeds. I showed you a couple of screenshots there, but you could see on that one we were downloading transactions, whereas here we're at the standard bank rec, we're not downloading transactions. So the assumption is you have a physical bank statement, and then we're matching them here. So we're saying here these items are on our bank statement, so we're going to match them. You put in an opening balance and a projected closing balance. The opening balance would be populated from the last bank rec that you do. And down here, you've got your matched less the projected end balance gives you a difference. Okay, so when you're happy and there's no difference, you can reconcile. Okay, so these transactions that you've matched become reconciled. Whilst you're here, you can enter further cash transactions. So it could be that you want to enter bank charges whilst you're here, so no VAT. So you could pick the code, put the charges on, and that automatically reconciles the entry. So you add all the cash transactions whilst you're doing the reconciliation. Or you can save a draft. Put in today's date, and then when I do the bank reconciliation later, it prompts me to recall the draft. and then you just pick up from where you left off. Okay, so you can carry on with your bank rec. Once you, like I say, once there's no difference and you're happy with what's been reconciled, what's been matched, you can reconcile. And you get two reports. One report which is showing you what is currently unreconciled in Sage, what you haven't matched, and another report showing you what you have reconciled. Recommendation would be to save these reports for future reference. Probably the only reports you can't produce retrospectively. Okay, so if you need these, you need to save them. So export to a file, a folder, or print it, whatever you want to do with these reports. If you were to view the account and statement balances, you can see here, there's my statement date, and that was the reconciled balance. And you can add that as a column as well. So you've got statement balance. If it's foreign currency, you can have it in account currency. So that's the Sage balance. That's the reconciled balance. So when you come into bank rec, these items that are unreconciled make up this balance. Is that clear? Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's one of the, I've lost my train of thought there. Yes. So once you've reconciled something, you can also unreconcile. If you go to period end routines and unreconciled bank transactions. So if you go to this will show you all the items you have previously reconciled, and then you can just highlight the one you need to unreconcile and match, and then unreconcile. Okay, so that just takes it back on to the bank rec now as a unmatched item. It just brings it back on. Okay, so that's it, unreconcile. Bank feeds, as I said, we need to revisit that once you've popped in your details on your live system. We can show you how that works, but I will send you an article about how that all works in the meantime. Okay. In the meantime, are you going to have any foreign bank accounts?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we have a euro account, but not a foreign bank account.
Yeah, so it's going to be in a foreign currency bank account, euro currency. Yeah. Okay, yes. So there is a routine to revalue the balance based on the current exchange rates. So you can maintain exchange rates in Sage. So in the accounting system manager, in the settings here, we maintain our currencies and exchange rates. Actually, for euro, you set the rate on sterling. So you say 1 euro equals 0.89 pounds, whatever. So you maintain that rate in Sage, and in Cashbook, if you do the foreign bank revaluation for a euro account, it can pick up the latest rate and revalue the balance for you, and post the difference to the gain or loss account, exchange gain or loss. When you pay, you're going to have foreign currency suppliers and customers.
Yes. No, there won't be suppliers, but we'll have clients.
Yes. Okay. So there's a similar thing on Sales Ledger as well. I mean, when you process a cash receipt for a customer, it does it automatically. So when you allocate the receipt to the invoice, if there's any gain or loss, it would do it at that time. But there's also a routine to revalue the whole balance, the whole customer ledger, sales ledger balance, which I'll show you when we go to do sales ledger. Okay. So in terms of cash book, we've also got standing orders and direct debits. So these are regular entries, recurring entries. So there is a limitation here. So I mean, if you you can do it for a supplier or a customer or a nominal. So for example, if you're doing a nominal non-battable or battable payment, direct debit, you just need to pick your nominal account, put in a description, and you can choose the first payment, how many payments they're going to be, the frequency, and the day of the month perhaps you want to pay, or you can have, you have quarterly or other. If it's other, you specify the days in between each payment and the total amount to pay. So when you do it this way, it's going to work out the regular payments for you. You can change the first and the last payment values, but you can't change the regular. So the first payment could be 1,000, the last payment could be 800, whatever, and then it works out the regular one for you. So once you save that, that's a direct debit saved in the system, but you do need to remember to come in and process them. So there's a process, standing orders, and you can say, process everything up until this date, and it would go ahead and post those transactions for you. It might be useful, where you're confident, where the regular amount is going to be the same every month. It might be something you want to consider using. Having said that, if you're going down the bank feeds option, then perhaps you can automate all of this via bank feeds, which is probably a better option. It's just something to consider. Okay. Is there any questions on Cashbook? Anything else you want to look at?
No, Jamie, not right now.
No. Okay. You've obviously got reports. There's a report section, unreconciled items, Cashbook transactions. Yeah. So there's that side to it. I think for now, one of the most important things is to remember. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Regarding forex rates, actually, how do we maintain that? Do we need to put that manually, or system is online?
Correcting transactions, did you say?
Foreign currency transactions, the forex rates he's asking.
Right. No, you do have to manually put in the rates in Sage. So in the current currencies and exchange rates, we need to maintain them manually.
So I mean, whether the team will have to do it. I mean, on how regularly is that done? Every day we'll have to put that rate, or
it's totally up to you how up to date you need your rates. But whatever rate you put in here, it's going to use.
Fine, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, you can in the settings. I mean, we've said here that amendable is everywhere. So when you're actually doing the transaction, you can change the rate if you like during transaction.
Okay.
Okay. I just need to take a note of something here. 1 second. Okay. Right. So yeah, one little tip with the menu. If you right click and collapse all, it sort of resets everything, which can help. Or you might prefer to unpin the menu. So if you click on unpin, it looks like this, and then you can just expand in that way and navigate. You know, when you go to an item, it sort of automatically unpins it for you. I tend to sort of pin it and have it there all the time, but that's obviously a user preference. Okay. The only setting in Cashbook is what is your default account. So, you know, if you've got multiple accounts, Barclays is my default. So when I do process a cash transaction, that's the one that comes up first. And you can obviously change it, but that's the default. Yeah. Okay. So I think that takes us through Cashbook. So did you want to move on to nominal ledger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Jimmy. That.
Guys, I have been back for a long time. Just one thing, I think. So we have covered purchase ledger, cash book, and bank reconciliation. Now nominal and sales ledger is left. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jamie, if what would you suggest? Should we take a break for 30 minutes and then come back?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone can have a quick lunch or sandwich or whatever they needed.
Yeah. Okay then.
Yeah. So
Okay.
should we stay? So I'll get out of this call and I'll dial in back. Should we use the same link for the meeting as well?
Yeah, I mean, you can leave it running if you like, because I'll just pause the session. I'll just pause it.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Shishir, you guys are fine to join back in 30 minutes. So we start again on 1:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, Image. That's fine. Yes.
All right. Okay, guys. Let's take a 30 minutes break.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So we're moving on to nominal ledger. Sorry, hang on a second. Okay. So nominal ledger, we have a list view of the nominal accounts. So, you know, same functions that we looked at before in terms of columns, adding, removing columns, sending to Excel, finding nominal accounts. You know, but any of the columns you've enabled, you can do searching. So you can search for a term, and also you can use the shortcuts along the top. Items that you will find in the full menu. We've got shortcuts too at the top here. Okay, so in terms of a nominal account, if we just look at an existing account, At the moment, we're just using the code. Okay, so there's no cost center or department breakdown at the moment on a nominal code. You know, these cost centers and departments are used for criteria, if you like, on a financial statement. So, for example, you might want to run a profit and loss for a region. So if you have revenue, costs, and overheads codes associated with a cost center, then you can run a financial statement for that cost center, and all the different codes get pulled together onto that financial statement. But yeah, I mean, it's something you can obviously add at any time. It's not something you have to have right at the beginning, but that's what these are for. We've got the account name, the status. So if you want to stop an account being used, you can set it to hidden. Okay, so that's what this option is for here. And then we've got the account type, the report category. So every nominal account must be assigned to a report category. And the report categories are used when you design a financial statement. So, for example, this category would be used when designing a profit and loss. So if I enable the report category column, we'll take off cost center and department because they're not being used at the moment, and we'll add report category code and description. So at the moment, what I've done to create maximum flexibility when designing a financial statement is to have a unique report category for every nominal. So that, in other words, the report categories mirror the nominal accounts. So the way they get used, if we go into nominal ledger utilities in the setup, we've got our financial statement layouts. So you can have as many profit and loss or balance sheet cash flow layouts as you like, but if I just put something in here and edit, and you've got different line types, so you can have text or account groups here if you like. So you could have a header which is revenue, and then within revenue you could either have a single or a multiple. So if you have a single, you pick are these the sales codes, these ones at the top here? Are these the sales codes at the top here?
First one is the sales. First one.
The first one.
Traditional media is
yeah. Okay, so you pick a category, give it a size. Obviously, as you know, credit balance is positive. That's what we're telling the report now. Show it as positive, and then we have other. If there are other sales codes, we can add them in. I don't know if there are any income codes. Is that the only sales code?
production as well.
Production. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you work through in this way, and then you can add a subtotal, and that's total revenue. So you work through in this way on costs and overheads, and create your report in this way. Okay, so you have a section, direct costs, whatever, however you want to display it. And once you've finished designing the profit and loss statement, if you come back and validate it, it will tell you what's missing. So in your chart of accounts, you have these current profit and loss codes that are currently not being used. So you want to review that. You want to go back in and add them in somewhere. So edit it and add them in. So I mean, once we've got everything set up on your live company, you know, I can show you how to do this, and then you'll probably be okay going ahead and setting it all up yourself. You know, contacting us if you need any help. You could have, like I say, another layout. So maybe a summary version, and again, perhaps for this one, you have a multiple account group, and you pick the codes, and then just call it income. So you see, I've summarized those two nominals onto one line on a financial statement. And then, yeah, so that could be, you know, you could design a summary version in that way. You can have as many layouts as you like, okay? And then we've got a similar thing, same thing for balance sheet and cash flow. Cash flow uses bank and budgets, though. It uses nominal budgets. So we'll come back to that. But that's how the report category is used. All right, so every single nominal account you must assign to a report category. If you're creating a new nominal account, you can assign it to an existing report category if you want, or if you want to separate it on your financial statement, you need to create a new report category. So that is in nominal ledger utilities, and the setup here. You've got an option for report categories. So I can come in here and create the new category. It doesn't have to mirror your nominal accounts, but I've done that at the moment, so you've got, you know, the most flexibility when designing the statements. Okay, so if we just go into the nominal account then, so yeah, we've got that. We've got the report category. This option to display the account balance is on. Just means that on the list view you'll see the balance. You know, it's unlikely you would ever want to untick that. By default, I think you do have to remember to tick it though if you're creating a new one. So it's something you have to remember. I mean, you can change it later, but it's just something to remember. You probably never want to use batch postings on nominal entries, because when you use that, you don't have the detail behind the postings. It just summarizes it into one balance, and you don't get the nominal breakdown. So it's very important. I would suggest not to tick that one. We've never had anyone that wants to use batch postings on nominal entries. Unfortunately, we can't turn it off in the settings. It's just something you have to remember not to tick when you're creating a new one.
Okay.
And this option here, allow manual journal entries. That one we would probably turn off on the control accounts. So, you know, age creditors control, the bank nominal codes, anything that's a control account, we'll turn that off. You know, you can always turn it back on if you need it. It's just a safety thing, really. So analysis codes, you can add codes for reporting, but it is only one value you can assign. So, you know, if you had a specific report requirement, we could perhaps revisit that, but I think I wouldn't worry about that for now. Budgets, so you can enter budgets manually if you like. There's an original budget and there's a current budget. And these obviously can be used on budget comparison reports. You can import the budgets as well for the current year and future years as well. I think up to 5 years worth of budgets you can import. Okay, and we've got attachments for documents again and memos for notes. But that's the that's the nominal account record.
So
Jimmy, we have a question.
yeah, so budget we need to put manually, or we can import it.
Budgets, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Budget figures we need to.
Budgets, you can import budgets.
How can you show?
Yeah, so in the nominal ledger utilities, you have an import option here. If you go to this one, import ledger file, then you can import budgets. And again, if you click on the show help, you can get the format that's required somewhere. Yeah, so you got the file structure and example files.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Yeah, so you just need to put it in this format, and then you can import it. Again, if you need any help with importing any data like this, just we can go through that and help you with that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's there. So that's a nominal account record. If you need to amend an account, you can find it in the list, perhaps by searching, and then amend, and that takes you into the account where you can change any of the details. The only thing you won't be able to change is the code, because that obviously when you've saved the account, that's a fixed field. You need to create a new code. So the the inquiry side, if we go into an inquiry, we have the read-only information on a nominal account, so you can see your budgets, attachments. So just read-only of the things we were looking at before. And I think, yeah, no, that's fine. Right, we'll come back to inquiries. Now, I'd like to show you some of the transactions first, and then we'll look at some of the inquiries following that. So in enter transactions, and some of the transactions here you will have as shortcuts on the nominal list view. So the journal, if we go to a journal entry, it can either be a new journal or a template. So you can set up journal templates. And the third way of doing it is by importing journals from a spreadsheet. So again, if you go to the utilities and the import and ledger file, then you can import nominal transactions. So in other words, a journal. And if you look at the help, there's a format for that too. Okay, so importing journals. The standard journal entry, if we're just doing a new journal, you've got the journal date, and then you've got the posting option. So it can either be a single journal entry on this date, or it can be one journal on this date and a reversing journal on the following date, on this date. So it posts two journals. Or you got recurring entry. So it would post the same transaction the number of times that you specify on the dates that you specify. So that's the recurring entry. So if so once you've got the posting options specified, then you can put in the detail of the journal down here. So you've got the nominal code selection. So you can find that by the name if you like. if you put in a couple of characters, it will filter the available list of codes in the name. Likewise, if you were to put in a couple of characters on a code and then tab, it would filter the list of available nominals to choose from. Yeah, that applies anywhere in Sage actually. In terms of the drop downs. Also, you can use wildcards. So if you put in a wildcard and then a O2, for example, it would show me any codes that have O2 anywhere in the field. So wildcard, start and end. So that's just something to keep in mind anywhere in Sage, not just here, obviously. You've got that option. Okay, so obviously you have to put the values in, and it has to balance before you can post. You can also hold the journal. So if you hold it and then come back to held journals on the menu, you can process, so you can recall that and pick up from where you left off and then post it when you're ready. So the journal has a unique reference number, so there's a reference field. So now that we've posted that journal, if I just go to the current transaction list here, this is a list of transactions. So if I sort by unique reference number, you can see number 18, URN 18, is our journal. The reference is journal number 1. The narrative was test. There's your values. There's the nominal account that was used. And you can add, various extra bits of information here. So you can see that the purchase invoice that we entered earlier, so this invoice here, is URN 11, unique reference number 11. It was that was the invoice number, the 455. Okay, and the narrative defaults to the document type and the account reference for the supplier. So these are the 3 nominal entries for that invoice. So obviously you've got the profit and loss and the control accounts for VAT and creditors, supplier control account. So the URN ties things together. In Sage 50, if you're familiar with that, I think you get a different transaction number for every single entry. So Sage 200.
Yeah, there was a number in there.
Yeah, so Sage 200 is different in that respect. The URN ties them all together. Okay. For the transaction, for the invoice, and the journals. The journal, you see, that journal number 1 is held together by the URN. So you can use URN numbers on reports, and it's available in the audit trail, which I'll show you later. Okay. So the other transactions then. So we've got shortcuts for the payments and receipts we looked at earlier. We don't need to revisit them. It's the same thing. It's just you can get to them from nominal ledger as well. You see these VATable and non-VATable payments and receipts. It's what we looked at earlier. You've got prepayments and accruals. So prepayment would be, you've had an invoice up front that's gone to a prop P&L code, and what you want to do is take it out of P&L and put it into prepayments. So we've had this invoice on this date, and it's going to come out of the profit and loss somewhere, and we choose what dates we want to post it back in to the profit and loss. So So what would happen is on this date, the invoice date, the £1,000 would get reversed from whatever nominal code was used on the invoice and put it into prepayments. On these dates, it posts it back in by these amounts. So that there's just a way of doing basically 5 journals. So the reversal journal and the journals here in one go. You got a similar thing for accruals. So if you anticipate an expense in the future, you can put the value in and say that's when my reversal is going to happen. But beforehand, I need to post it into my P&L starting from now. So then, you have your accrual postings. So again, 5 journals posted all in one go. Obviously, you have to be fairly accurate with the accrual value, but I guess that's just the nature of accruals, isn't it? Sometimes you take an estimate on some of them.
So, Jimmy, on this one, if you don't want to reverse, so if you want to just post the transaction, but you don't want to reverse, can you do that?
If you just want to post an accrual, and no.
Yeah, I just want to post the accrual, but I don't know the reversal date, because sometimes like you don't know when the actual invoice is gonna come, so you don't know when it's gonna come.
Yeah, you'd have to just use a normal journal entry for that.
So in this scenario, you'll have to put the reversal.
You have to put the reversal date, yeah. So if that's not going to work, you just use you can import journals or you can enter journals. You just do manual journals.
Okay, and then the the 4 journals which you just shown on the below side, you just tap that and it comes up automatically, or you'll have to put the values?
Yeah, so you've got to put the date and the value. And when you post it, I'll show you what happens. So if I post that, and then if we look at the transaction list, they've probably gone off into deferred, haven't they? So yeah, one of the key differences from Sage 50 is you have accounting period status. So in Accounting System Manager, if we look at accounting periods, you see that anything past July at the moment is future. So if it's a future status, so for example, next financial year is future, obviously. So if you post something to future, it gets held in deferred. So on your lists here, you've got current list and you've got deferred list. So if we look at deferred, here you can see our accrual. So there's the reversal in October, and these are the postings for the months up until that point. From accruals to whatever code we chose, and it's all under one URN. So accounting period status is you use that for your management report. So if you're happy you've got all your sales on, you close sales. So we got all our sales transactions on for July. We can close it. I think Bashisha, you mentioned, or Image mentioned, that you have experience with Sage 200 already, and so you probably know this area already. Is that right?
No, Jimmy. We have been using Sage 50, but not Sage 200. So team knows Sage 50, how to use Sage 50 actually.
Okay. So yeah, so
in Sage.
Go on.
Yeah, in Sage 50 we we usually run month ends, and only then accrual payments will be posted, but not at the time of posting the original invoice, but at the time of running the month end. But now we can see that it is automatically posted at the time of posting of the invoice.
That's
So I
right.
think this is a problem because
Yes. So if I just show you an example. So I'm just going to change my permissions at the moment. So my user can do these things, my user account. So if I was to close sales for period 1, April, so that would just confirm the closure. I mean, you can reopen. So that's now closed. So if I was to now enter a sales invoice, a late one came in for April, I still retain the April date for tax VAT purposes. But in terms of our management reports, so our profit and loss, trial balance, and so on, it goes into the next open one. So if you ran a TB for period 2, it would include it. Or profit and loss, it would include it in period 2 because period 1 is closed. The same applies purchase ledger and nominal ledger. Stock is you won't see on your one. It's only because I've got it enabled in Cashbook. And if you wanted to reopen it for whatever reason, you can reopen and then post to that period. So the accounting period status is a control for management reports. So you can go ahead before you've run a year end and post to the next year, and it just gets held in deferred postings. So after you run the year end, you can update your postings, and they'll just come from deferred. They'll move from this deferred list into your current. And when they're in current, that is when they update the account balance. So the TB. Whilst they're in deferred, they do not affect the account balance. The trial balance is not affected.
One question, Jimmy. It's
Yeah.
on the deferred one. Say by mistake, if anyone is trying to post something in 2019, but the transaction is related to 2018, right?
Yeah.
Does the system not locks the future date and doesn't allow them to post for the financial year which has not been opened yet or which has not been rolled over?
Well, you can. There are settings. So in the accounting system manager, we've got transaction date validation. So you've either got calendar based. So if it's, for example, pre 60 from today's date or post 20 from today's date, that's the normal range. Anything after that, so between normal and acceptable, you get a warning. If there's anything outside of acceptable, so more than post 60, it wouldn't let you use the date. Or
that's what I was referring.
So that's what most people use. Or there is a accounting period based validation. This is a little bit more restrictive. You can say future financial years or previous financial years is acceptable, but you'll get a warning, or unacceptable, it wouldn't let you.
Okay.
But I would suggest that you do allow posting to future years, because you want things to go into deferred and you want to carry on working in Sage, before you've run a year end. You just want to carry on. So I would allow future year postings. I'd probably suggest using the calendar based. You can always turn it off if you don't need it. Temporarily you can turn it off. Okay. Right, so we've got the the deferred entries here for August onwards, and we got our current entries that we were looking at just now. So if it's a journal, you can use the correction option here. So if I go to correct transaction, oh sorry, this is a recurring. This was our accrual, so you can't actually. If it's a reversing or recurring entry, you won't be able to use the correction. It has to be. So if I just put on a new one, another journal. Journal number 2. So if I go to the correct option, I can correct anything here. So I can actually say, well, it shouldn't have gone to that code. It should have gone to this code. I needed to change the narrative. Need to change the value. Whatever you need to do, you can change that. If there's no VAT, leave it on not applicable. It's unusual that you'd use VAT on a journal, and you have to kind of treat it like an invoice. You probably wouldn't ever use VAT on journals. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it's very unusual we to ever see people using VAT on journals. So yeah, once you put in your details, you can post your corrections, and if we refresh the current transaction list, right, where's that gone? Channel number 2. Okay, I thought I changed the nominal. Yeah, so now you've got the reversal journal and the new journal posting it to the correct code. Okay, so that's what correct transactions for. Okay, so amending details allows you to change narrative, but that's it. It's, you can just change the narrative on amend details. So correct is when you actually want to take a journal out and you either reverse it or you post your corrections. A bit like what we looked at in purchase ledger, similar to that. Okay.
Can we change accruals?
What can you change accruals? Did you say?
Can we amend the
Well, if we're using a recurring entry or an accruals, it won't let you use the correct option. You will have to post a manual journal to correct those.
Can we amend the posting data waiting on the deferred list?
Can you amend the? Sorry,
posting data waiting on the deferred list. Deferred waiting posting list.
Oh yes, you can. Yeah. If you go to deferred, you got correct here as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, it's only for journals. So if non-recurring or reversing journal entries. So this one was a recurring or reversing, so you can't use it. You need to post a new. You need to do a manual journal to reverse it. Okay. So we've got Yeah, we've also got the previous year journal entry. So what is the financial year again? The end of the year? It's April, isn't it?
Yeah.
April, yeah. So previous year journal entry. Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Okay, I think they've probably changed this now, which is okay. It makes sense. But when you've run a year end in Sage, you can't backdate things into the prior year. It won't allow you to do that. Okay, so if you've run a year end and you have audit adjustments to do, perhaps, then you can use this option, previous year journal entry. So what it would look like a normal journal, okay, but for a profit and loss account, it would adjust the closing balance on the prior year and do adjustments to retained earnings in the current year. It would do everything you'd expect it to do.
Okay.
Because I think in Sage 50 you can sort of backdate things, can't you? And then it makes an entry in the balance sheet or something for previous year adjustments. Whereas you can't do that in 200. You have to use this specific journal entry to adjust prior year. Okay. Journal template. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Journal templates. You can set up, whatever template you need, and it could be accounts, percentage, or value. So if it's just accounts, you just specify what codes you want to use on the nominal. So you specify them all here. If it's percentage, you can also say 100% of the debits need to go on here, 80 credits on there, 20% of credits on there. Unlikely, but it's an option. And values is you can specify hard-coded values on the journal. But keep in mind you can always import journals anyway from a spreadsheet, so there is that option. But that's the template. So if when you go to do a journal and you select the template option, you can recall that template and it just brings through the nominal codes for you. And then you can just populate the values. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the journal. Fixed assets, is that something you need to look at now or revisit perhaps, or?
No, we need it.
If you can show now, Jimmy.
Yep. So we have you can import these again from a spreadsheet, but I'll just take you into it. So you've got to have a unique reference for the asset. I mean, you could call it whatever you wanted. So it could be sort of laptop details, and it's got to have an initial value. That's an expensive laptop, isn't it? And then you got to have the date you acquired, the laptop when it was last depreciated. And all of this is available on the import as well. All these details. So these dates, the values, the depreciation method, the current net book value. If you want to specify a residual value, you can, and the lifespan. And then you could just put in the depreciation codes for balance sheets. I'm assuming it's here somewhere. You've got to have a depreciation code for balance sheet and profit and loss. Off the top of your head, do you know what they might be?
No, right now we don't have any.
No. Okay, so you'd need to create the nominal codes first, and then you could use them. You can use them here. So you can also specify for analysis purposes. I'm just going to put anything in here for now. It needs to be a seems to have frozen on me. Yeah, it's frozen. Okay. Yeah, all right. I tend to have this sometimes on virtual machines. I think it's because the resources on my laptop are just not adequate enough, but because I'm running the whole thing on here, like SQL, Sage Server, everything is on here.
But what if we posted for 20 invoices on rapid invoice and then it is stuck? Will it be saved or we need to post it again?
If the system crashed?
No. If the Sage is just hanging.
If it's hanging, it normally it'd roll back whatever you're in, whatever you're doing at the time. It'd roll back and wouldn't post anything. But like I said, the reason I'm having these crashes, I think, is because on my laptop I've got limited resources to run this virtual machine. So now and again it does struggle. Which, you know, you won't have that situation. You'll just have a client running on your laptop. You won't have this database management server, SQL. You know, you won't have the Sage server elements, the web services. I've got everything running on this virtual machine. So I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously I'm just using any old accounts for now. But you can add manager, location, analysis for reporting, extra reporting on asset valuation, that kind of thing. But if I save that, I now have a new asset on the register. And like I said, you could put all of them into a spreadsheet and then import them. There's an option here in the utilities to import asset. Again, hit the help file, hit the help option, and you will find the import file. There is a link here. Again, the Excel and the example file for importing. So it's in terms of depreciation, you come into this routine and run depreciate, and what it would do is it would list all of the assets that have not yet been depreciated for the period that you select. So for July, we have not depreciated this asset yet. So we can select all of them and then depreciate and use a date, if you like, end of the month if you want, for the depreciation posting. So now the depreciation is updated, the net book value is updated. Yeah, you know, if you went to go depreciate again, it doesn't exist anymore because it's already been depreciated for July. If you look at August, it's available for depreciation. There's a disposal routine again, so if you need to dispose or make a sale of the asset, you can do that here, and it does everything you'd expect to in terms of nominal postings. You can delete assets. It's quite a straightforward module, really. It's mainly to automate depreciation postings. You've got a couple of reports here, so you can run valuation reports on your assets. Doesn't normally take that long. Yeah, so you get a list of all your assets, depreciation to date, the net book value to date. And like I said before, you can send all these reports to Excel and do whatever you want. So is that enough on assets, or do you want to? Is there anything else you want to ask?
For just for fixed asset or yeah, fixed asset is fine.
Assets is fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So okay. So we've got the nominal list. So in terms of inquiries, if we're in our nominal list and we find an account and you double click, it takes you into transaction inquiry, a bit like what we looked at in purchase ledger. Okay, so that's into our transaction inquiry. So we get a list of current transactions for this account. You can filter by date range or by period number, perhaps this year or last financial year filter. You know, send to Excel from these things as well. And also, if you click on detail, excuse me. If you click on detail, it gives you the associated nominal postings. So whatever else was included on that, when you know that URN, because like I said before, it's all held together by that URN number 5. So all the double entry, all the associated nominal postings can be seen. Seen here. You can also look at if it was the VAT breakdown, the trader information, so the invoice details, all via the detail. Historic is when things have been archived. So if you look at an account record, the default is to keep things for 36 months. So when you run a period end or a year end, it would just move from current to historical. They're still in the system. You know, they haven't gone anywhere. You still report on them. They're just in a separate area. Okay. So that's the transaction inquiry. You've also got workspaces like in this module as well. So for accounts and transactions, so you can do your filtering to find a particular transaction record, nominal transaction, and there's one for archive, so historical inquiry. So in terms of period end routines, after you've run a year end and you've opened up period number 1, you'll need to run update weighted postings. So what would happen is the deferred postings move to current, and then you need to update them. And then they come through on the nominal account period number 1 or whatever you've opened. It only shows you the open ones here. In period end routines, we've also got the VAT return. Okay, so we need a VAT date. So, all right. That's when I crashed out again. Whereabouts are you guys? It sounds busy outside.
Sorry, Jimmy?
I was saying, whereabouts are you guys? It sounds busy outside.
No. We're in the office right now.
I heard some traffic, some busy traffic.
Yeah, that's the road next by to our office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so VAT return, the VAT analysis routine is where you produce your final VAT return. So the first tab here gives you a breakdown for each module, so sales and purchases. So it gives you a breakdown for each VAT code. If you were to click on that, it'll give you a list of transactions, VAT transactions that make up that total. Okay. The tab in the middle is where you see it in the relevant boxes. Okay, so again, if you click on the figure, you get a breakdown by code, and the transactions. You can add an adjustment, a VAT adjustment, but just keep in mind that if you do that here, there are no nominal entries for that. So you probably have to go and do a journal afterwards if you do a VAT adjustment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When you produce the VAT return, we can configure it to connect online. So you could submit the return via the government gateway. And also the version that you're on is going to be ready for making tax digital when that comes into effect in April.
How do we link it?
I don't know whether we need to link it or not.
image.
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, we can link it. It's not gonna harm us anything. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, sure.
Normally, what we do, Jamie, is that for internal control purposes, we take the reports of Sage or the other accounting packages, circulate internally through compliance team,
Yeah.
and then we go online on the government portal and then manually submit the report. But yeah, I mean, there is nothing harm us linking that through and then submitting through the system.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think when you go to produce it,
Yep.
you can confirm the next VAT return, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah. I think only challenge here I would say is that we just need to see when we import the transactions, because we want to import the transactions from 3rd of March to August, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's where we need to see. And yeah, I mean, I'll cover the few points which I have in mind, so we can just talk through those things.
Yeah, sure. So you're importing, what transactions are you planning on importing?
So either import or we want, so remember, I think we had a discussion that we want a transaction from March onwards, this year,
Yeah,
because
so
that's where the decision has been taken.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think you were going to do a sort of a journal for that, weren't you? So, for the movement.
Yeah, I mean, we need to see the format, what can be import in that, and how the best way to confirm. We can cover that as a last point.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I'll check what I sent on my data migration email, but I think what we said is that we'd have a journal for each period movement. But perhaps we discuss that another time. Yeah, we'll revisit that.
Yeah, but when you mention the journals, it will be between the two nominal codes, right?
Yeah, well, as many nominal codes as you like. Yeah, it'd be the trial balance.
And is there any set format which the data can be imported?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think if you can share that template, then we can see. And what data you have already got from Peter so far?
Well, I've got all the suppliers, customers, and products.
Okay, so supplier, customer, and products you have all got, but
Yeah.
you don't have a transaction details yet.
Well, actually, I don't. Let me check the. 1 second.
So data migration we definitely want to do from March, but which format and how we import, I can't remember, to be honest.
Yeah, let me just dig out the email for this. Okay, you can see this email now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay. Yeah, so what I've said here, on the go live date, I'm going to need EPE to provide all nominal transactions for the financial year to date using the format shown in the attachment. Nominal transactions, this attachment here. So this one gives you the format that I need. So nominal account number, date, amount, reference, and narrative. Okay. So that's the nominal side.
Okay.
And that would be for the year to date, the financial year to date, yeah?
That is fine. So how does okay? So how does we? So that is nominal transaction. Fine, understood. What about the supplier and so purchase and sell?
Right. So on the go live date, as I've said here, I will require EPE to provide an aged debtors and a creditor and accreditors with all the transaction details. So in other words, at go live, I take the outstanding items into Sage 200, and they go in as opening balance transactions. So they have no effect, as you can see here, they have no effect on nominal balances or VAT. It's just to put a transaction balance on the supplier and customer account. That's all. And these are the columns that I've specified that I'm going to need for the aged debtors and aged creditors. I'm going to need these columns. So you see the important thing here is its outstanding value, yeah? Is that okay? Is that clear?
Well, it is clear. We just need to understand internally that how then, because if you are saying that nominal transaction, which is fine, I think that's what probably we discussed, but then it doesn't give me the data for between any point. I mean, if I look at the supplier activity between March and August, it doesn't give me any details on that side, right? I will have to go back on old system and look at the supplier activity on that side. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, you could look at the nominal transactions to get activity, because I think we're bringing in all the nominal activity. But yes, you're right. If you're looking at a supplier record and looking at the transactions for that supplier in purchase ledger, yeah, you would only see the outstanding ones that go live. Plus anything that's entered, obviously, on Sage 200 from go live.
Okay, we'll have an internal look at how we want to manage that data, and then we'll come back to you. Is there any way, by the way, that to have the complete supplier activity, not just a opening?
Well, the problem with that is nothing would be allocated. So you'd have unallocated cash, you'd have unallocated invoices, you'd have unallocated credit notes all sitting on the account.
And someone has to go and then do the manual, well, has to do the postings for those. Well,
we can import all the transactions, but then allocating them all together would be a manual process. And in the past, it's been avoided because it's just too much work.
Okay, understood, Jimmy. We'll discuss internally and then see what is required, because we do need to definitely retain a data, but we just need to have a clear understanding that in this period, if we need any data, then how to basically which way to look at, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Also with Cashbook, we, like I said earlier, we bring in the reconcile balance when we create the bank accounts, the Cashbook accounts, and sales and purchase orders. If there's any open ones, we need to manually enter those at go live for any uninvoiced items. Okay.
Okay.
So that's that side. Yeah, so when you produce the VAT return, it can connect online, and once you've submitted it, you specify the next return end date here, and that would obviously move this end date on. Once you've VAT reconciled items, they obviously cannot be included in a future VAT return. If transactions get entered late, they just get picked up in the next VAT return. So if you submitted August and then you entered an August entry afterwards, it just gets rolled up into the next VAT return. Okay, and on the completed period totals, you can see the history of VAT returns here. The other thing to note with this is it does not do any nominal postings. So if you want to do journals for VAT, liability, then you need to do that separately. So if we go to the utilities, the default nominal accounts, so I can see that you've got an input code and an output code. So I'm assuming you also have a VAT liability code. Yeah, the VAT control, isn't it? VAT control account. Oh, okay. So have you got a code for sales VAT? Output VAT?
No, the VAT control account is the only account that we use.
Oh, you only use the 8200 for that. So you just use this one then, 8200.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we need to make sure that input is 8200 as well then. So purchases and sales is 8200. In which case you don't have to do a journal because it goes straight to the control account anyway.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just taking a note of that.
So it won't post any general entry automatically. We need to post it manually.
Well, when you do a transaction and you use a VAT code, it automatically will use these normal codes.
No. At the time of filing of the return, VAT return, it won't post any additional entries in Sage.
No, a VAT return doesn't post any nominal entries. No. But the
facility is available in Sage 50.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, if you're using one nominal code, 8200, then you don't really need any journals anyway, because both purchases and sales are both posting to the control account 8200. So there is no journal to do anyway. The only time you have a posting to that is when you pay HMRC, when you make a payment.
yeah.
And when you do that, you'd select 8200.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think you've got anything to be concerned about there. I think that's fine. It looks like this code is just not going to be used. 8204.
No, we will not use it in future.
You're not going to use 8204. Yeah, just this one. Fine. Yeah. Okay. In period end routines, we also have the year end. Okay, so this is where you run your year end. You just tick the boxes and click OK. It basically moves everything into retained earnings as you'd expect. And when you look at the accounting periods, this will now have the future financial year. So 2019 would move into this year. Okay. So yes, when you run a year end, we are if you go to I go to the option. If you click on the little help button here, it gives you this suggested procedure. It gives you what's going to happen, the outcomes before you begin, things to watch out for, and then what to do, how to perform a year end. One thing I would suggest is this first step here, ensure that at least one backup of the data has been made. You contact Utilize and we can do that for you on the server, because it has to be done via the database management system, SQL server. The backups will be automated for you. And your IT guys will be able to say how often everything's backed up, but on-demand backups, contact Utilize and we can do that for you. There is no backup utility within the program itself. It's not like Sage 50 where you can go to backup. It doesn't work like that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
How frequent is taken?
How what? Sorry.
How frequent are the backups taken?
How frequent? Well, you would need to contact your IT guys and say, how frequent and how are you backing up all the data on our server, the SQL, the database server, Sage server. They'll have a plan in place to do all that for you, so that is their responsibility. But if it's an on-demand backup, like you want to run a year end and you need a backup taken right now at this specific point in time, then contact Utilize and we can help you with that. Okay. And then that's one of the prerequisites of, I'd say, of running a year end. Just make sure you've done a backup, and then you can.
Jimmy, generally, if we come to you for backup, how much time would it take?
Oh, just a few minutes.
Will it be done immediately?
Yeah, just
a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, sorry, before you run a year end, another condition, a requisite, is that all of the periods have to be closed in the current year. So this financial year, everything has to be closed, which makes sense, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously in the report section, we've got, nominal transaction reports. We've got manual journal listings. So if you want a report for all the manual journals that have been processed, with a journal reference, there's a report for that. If you've hidden any nominal accounts, you can run a report for that one. Shouldn't take this long normally, obviously. Yeah, there's none hidden. Financial statements, so we got our trial balance, profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow reports. Yeah. So the things I think I need you to have a look into. I did take a note earlier. So in the ledger setup, in the default, so we have to specify default nominal accounts, and one of them was the retained earnings, so the accumulated profit. I don't think I could find that in the chart of accounts at the moment. I think I've got the creditors control and the debtors control, so we have to specify those in the default accounts. These two. So 7214. Yeah, that's the control account for suppliers. Yeah, is that correct? Is that the age creditors?
No. Actually, it should be media ledger.
Media.
Media ledger.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
So that's the creditors control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that needs to be. We need to specify that in the settings here. And debtors. Supply a customer.
That is sales ledger.
Sales. Yeah. 7100. So I've got that one right. So the other one that we need to get right is this one, the retained earnings, accumulated profit. So when you run a year end, all the profit and loss balances go into that account.
Yeah. For that, I need to look at this chart of accounts. I don't remember that amount.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything with the word profit in. Oh, obviously that's looking at the profit and loss there, isn't it? Yeah, I couldn't see anything for accumulated profit or retained earnings. So you might want to review that on the chart of accounts that Peter sent to me.
Would you like us to send you the details chart of accounts, Jamie?
Well, Peter has sent me the chart of accounts. So what you're seeing here in this list here is what Peter has sent me.
Okay.
Now, if you need to make changes to that, I don't mind how you do that, whether it comes from Peter or yourselves. But this is just the training company, so don't worry. This is just the training. So on the live company, we import it all over again.
Right. Okay.
But what we will need is the retained earnings. It doesn't look like retained earnings is currently on the chart of accounts. So the profit.
Actually it is, but as I look at the chart of account, it is not complete. We need to send you a complete chart of accounts.
Yes, yeah. So whether that comes from Peter or yourselves, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll just need that for the live company.
Okay, we will send it to you.
Okay. Great. Okay. It's frozen on me again. Ugh. There you go. I'm out. Great. Okay, so that's the default accounts. We've discussed the.
Can we go back to report section? Can we go back to report section?
The report section.
Yeah. Do we have comparative trial balance here?
Do you have comparative?
Trial balance.
Say that again. Sorry.
Comparative trial balance. There we can compare two different periods, like month or year.
Okay. Yeah. If you run month to date, year to date. It will have.
No, that would be profit and loss. I need trial balance.
Trial balance.
Yes. In Sage 50, it's named as transactional trial balance.
Yes. No, we don't have that transaction trial balance. We got this one as a summary, which gives you this period and year to date. But you're looking for a comparison to prior year trial balance.
Not prior year, but prior month.
Prior month.
Like if we are running June, I need also the May corresponding figures in front of that.
Yeah. For that, you'd probably be looking at using. Let's have a look. So. Yeah, you're going to be looking. I think the best option is business intelligence. Now, I don't know. I think we should be installing that because you know it's an on-premise. Your license, business intelligence, basically runs in Excel.
Can you check trial balance analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is any BI data for this company at the moment, but I can show you on another company.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Ah. I think for BI also you'd be looking at additional training, really, to be honest, for this module. I'm not sure. I have to check the schedule, but I don't think we've got anything in the schedule for training on BI.
No, we don't have, Jimmy.
No. But can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Excel, you can. It's a bit like pivot layout. So you can. I could take my periods up here. Have a balance. And group things by year, perhaps. And then expand into the year. So there I have a trial balance for each period, you see?
Yeah, yeah, that would be better.
That kind of thing. It's,
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, it's quite straightforward, the BI side of things. Maybe, you know, you have a specific report requirement and I can help you on a support call rather than doing a whole training session. I don't know. It depends how much reporting you want to use, because you can use your profit and loss layouts here as well. So the financial statement design I showed you earlier, where we were designing a profit and loss. So you could have, you could design your P&L and choose what you want to display on the report. See now, I mean, if I was importing budgets as well, I could have sort of movement or budget movement variance, and perhaps year to date budget movement variance, prior year comparisons. Yeah, perhaps not period by period is a bit much. Maybe you just have budget and movement. Now you've got, sort of total sales, period one, budget movement, profit, and so on. Whatever you've designed in terms of your P&L, you can display it in this way. Okay, so there's quite a lot of things you can do, because you can do calculated fields and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite powerful for reporting. And you can format this as well. You can do the formatting. I mean, I probably would recommend training, because there's quite a lot to look at. But anyway, that's how that type of request that you mentioned, period by period. This is what we need to use. Okay. Anything else on nominal ledger you want to ask?
Not yet.
Nothing, Jamie, not now.
Okay. Fine. So the just before we move on to sales, accounting system manager. This is where we had the accounting periods. Okay, so we open and close periods here. You also have an audit trail here. So if we go to the audit trail, regardless of whether it's gone into a deferred period, you know, in the next financial year or current year or whatever, as soon as the transaction is entered on Sage, it goes on to the audit trail. I guess it's a bit like the financials view in Sage 50. So all the transactions are here. Again, you know you've got that unique reference number that ties transactions together. You got the financial year start date, period number, narrative, references, obviously nominal code, dates. You've got transaction date and all the other entries here. We can add posted dates. There's all sorts of stuff we can add there. So that's the audit trail. And if we do bring in opening balances go live, which we're planning on doing for customers and suppliers, you'd see that in this list, opening balance audit trail. The workspaces, this option on the menu gives us an overview of all the workspace inquiries. So for example, if we go to nominal ledger, we've got a workspace. We got workspaces for transactions. This is nominal transaction workspace, and also slowing down a bit now. I think it's because I've got the BI thing running. We've also got list views, so you've got an audit trail list, so you can use the column filters to find a transaction on the audit trail. Again, you've got the column selector for adding information. Okay, so that adds it on. So that's something to keep in mind, the workspace menu for various inquiries that you can do. So they can be quite useful. Okay, so finally then we've got the sales ledger. Do you want to crack on with that, or do you want a break?
Can we continue after 5 minutes, Jimmy?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, we'll join by 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, no, that's fine. And then we've got the write-off small amounts. So this is similar to it's the same as the purchase ledger. So there might be a small balance, fact discrepancies. If you filter the list, you get a whole list of transactions here that you can write off small amounts for. In period end routines, we've got account maintenance, so archiving transactions that are over whatever the threshold that we've specified. So the default, as I said, 30 months. You don't have to run the account maintenance. It's an optional routine. And we got the foreign account revaluation. So, you know, when you have updated exchange rates, you can run this routine to revalue the balances and it does a posting to the gain or loss. We've got finance charges. This is on debt though, so most of the time we find people that are not using finance charges on debt. Would that be correct for you as well? So you're charging your customer finance on their debt?
Not really, Jamie.
No.
Have that so far.
Yeah, sure.
Debt.
Yeah, so like, you know, on outstanding invoices, if they're overdue, you start charging them finance. It's unusual.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so reports, we got, you know, the standard reports, transaction reports, daybook. We got the credit control, so we've got the debtors. We've got statements. Okay, so this is one where you come and run your statements. And again, we would.
Jimmy, what is the difference between detailed age data and your summary age data?
Oh, okay, yeah. So what's it doing? Yes. So the summary just gives you account totals. It doesn't give the transactions. So
Okay.
So detailed would give me by customer, the outstanding items.
Invoice.
Yeah.
All right. And can we arrange this in alphabetical order or any other order we want?
You can arrange. Yeah, you can apply sorting to the report. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
One more thing. This can be extracted. This can be exported to Excel format as well.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm asking, is it possible to extract it to an Excel?
In Excel, did you say?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you can send it to Excel. Yeah.
Okay.
If you data to Excel.
Okay.
Yeah, puts it all in there. And debtor letters as well. So you can send out letters based on the age of the debt. So in the settings for Sales Ledger, you've got your aging settings here, so you can specify how many periods you want and the days in between each period. So when you run your age debtors report or produce debtor letters, it sorts them into these periods that you've specified. You could temporarily change this if you wanted to for one report and then change it back again. So you can play around with these settings. Imports. Again, we've got imports for transactions or accounts. If you need to use those, it's unlikely, I think, with transactions because you know it's all going to be coming from the sales order, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be posting from that module. Okay, so in terms of Sales Ledger, is there anything specific you want to go over or you want to cover?
Well, from credit control's point of view, found two things which would be useful to me. One would be credit controlling, the whole section of credit controlling, and the second is the allocation layer. So these two functionality which I would be using on regular basis. So I would, I mean, how do I, uh, uh, from navigational point of view, how do I use it? So do I, once I get all the information uploaded on Sage, then we can go ahead and navigate this, or how it's going to work? From practice point of view, once we go live, so before going it.
Yeah, sorry, I have to say I'm picking up words here and there. I don't know if the line's quite bad or but I didn't really get a lot of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, just a moment, Jamie. Jamie, if you could show us a bit, tell us a bit about reports that we can use for credit control and then the allocation of the payments that we would be receiving.
Okay, so credit control. So I guess the one thing is you'd be looking at running age debtors reports. There's one thing.
Yeah. So in this, we'll get a report with the buckets like 0 to 30 aging.
Yeah, that's right. So if we run the age debtors report, so that's put it into the different aging here for each transaction.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So each one of these transactions will be put into the relevant aging period.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing you've got is, I think in inquiries, if you look at the credit control workspace, this would list all customers with a balance, and and down here would give you the transactions that are outstanding.
Okay.
I can't see. Yeah. I'm not sure if it gives you the age in terms of the aging period. I'm not sure it does that. But it just gives you customers with balances and the transactions that make up that balance. If you're looking at the transaction inquiry, again, by default, it's only showing you outstanding items. So this is the same transaction inquiry that we looked at this morning, you know, with suppliers. So you can drill down onto nominal or allocation. If it's been allocated, you can see the detail. Yeah. If one thing you might want to use for credit control purposes is memos. So if you add a memo chasing chasing payment, but there's an issue. There's an active memo now on this invoice. Well, credit note, but you know what I mean. If you don't need the memo anymore, you can just delete it or set it as inactive. Inactive, it changes the symbol, or delete. So for someone that's looking at the transaction inquiry, they can immediately see there is a memo. So they can go down here and see the history of, communication for this transaction.
Right.
So that could be used for credit control purposes. And in terms of your other question was allocation, is that right? How you do allocation?
Yes. Yes.
So this is allocating cash to invoices.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So when you're entering a cash receipt, you know, from a customer, you would select save and allocate and choose. So there's the receipt allocation, and then you choose the invoice that you need to allocate it to. It's as simple as that. Yeah, and then when you save it, that's now allocated. So if we were to look at the transaction inquiry, we would see an allocated value here of £100. So it's been part paid, that invoice, part allocated. If I untick this option, I can see my receipt that's been fully allocated to the invoice. So if I look at the allocation session, I can see my receipt was allocated to invoice number 1. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of allocation, so if you had a payment on account and you want to come back and do your allocation at a later stage, if you go into sales ledger, enter transactions, and then allocation. So here we can come in and do it at a later stage. So there's my payment on account, and it needs to be allocated to this invoice. Oh, there's only £13 outstanding on that one, so not that one.
Over 38.
Yeah. So you could allocate it to that one, or use the auto allocation. If you use auto, it would allocate, you know, both of these, and then based on due date, it would allocate what it can on here. Yeah. So that's allocation option. You come in, do that at a later stage. Adjust transactions. You got amend allocation. So if there was, like I said before, if there was a problem with the allocation, you can come in here and edit that. So take that away. If I reverse both to 0, I can remove the allocation. Which I'm not sure in Sage 50 whether that was an easy thing to do. I don't think it was. Once you've allocated cash to an invoice, you'd have to go, I don't know, file maintenance or something.
Possible that, Manish? Once cash was allocated on Sage 50, was there a way to reverse it? No. Okay, Jamie, we don't know about that right now.
Sure. Does that answer your questions in terms of credit control and allocation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Sorry, it's difficult, you know, doing the remote training sometimes because you know, sometimes it's useful to do it face to face, because then you get more of an idea of when people want to sort of ask questions, or you know. But hopefully it's been useful.
Yes, Jimmy, it was useful, very useful actually. But we might have questions in future, and hopefully we can come back to you with our questions.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to go through?
No, Jamie, nothing from our end right now.
Yeah, just one thing. Can we upload chart of account ourselves on Sage?
The fixed assets?
No, chart of accounts.
Chart of accounts, Jamie.
Yes. So that's, you know, I mentioned earlier, Peter gave me a spreadsheet with a chart of accounts.
Yeah. So whether we can upload it ourselves, or you'll have to ask your team to upload it for us.
Well, no, you can do it, but at Go Live is probably something I would do when I set up your company for you, this new company.
Right.
That's fine. I'm just asking whether we can do it.
But so that will be again user based. We'll have to allocate it to someone or to admin to.
Yeah. So if you go to the import option, if you've got the permission to do it, then yes, you'll be able to import normal accounts.
Okay.
But at Go Live, I'll get that all set up for you.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that when you go live.
Just out of a query, I'd like to know that can we or personally can anyone access the as in if someone wants to navigate the software?
Okay, Jamie, what the team wants to know is there a way we can log into this demo company or the training company now so that they can check a few things here and there?
The only way you'll be able to do that is when your installation is complete. And what I'll do then,
Right.
is I'll transfer this training data onto your server.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know
Fine.
if you've had an update on that from your IT guys.
Image has some update for us, but
Okay.
I don't have the complete idea right now with me.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So as soon as that is ready, and my colleagues will let me know the installation date, and I will transfer. I'll transfer this data onto your server.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Fine. Yep.
But any other questions? You know how to reach me. You've got my contact details.
Right. Yes,
Sure.
Jim. So, Jimmy, what we have is your board number. Actually, it goes to your. I have to reach you through your sales team or support team. Is there a direct number that
Yep.
we can reach on?
Yeah, I'll give you that to you now. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Fine. Thanks, Jimmy.
It's 078.
Okay.
Sorry, you ready for it? Yeah.
Yes. Tell
Yeah.
me.
It's 07812
Okay.
974
Okay.
677.
Okay. I'll just repeat that once. It's 07812 974 677.
That's correct.
Okay. Fine, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Fine, Jamie. Then I think there are no other questions from the team.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That's okay. No problem.
Right. Fine, Jamie. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.